Got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
I call this the coffee shop conundrum. And this is funny. I used our AI to kind of like think through this last week.
Okay.
Why do you feel like, or what's your best guess? Why do you think coffee shops tend to be more liberal in general? Not all of them, but I feel like if you go into a coffee shop, the atmosphere oftentimes tends to be more progressive leaning. Yeah. So like we went into one the other day and it was like we turned right back around because it's like plastered in rainbow flags and every current cause from the last like 10 years.
With my wife and I like a week or two ago, urban ones. So downtowns are always very alternative lifestyle oriented.
Yeah. So urban, the city, that is, I think that's a fair point.
Higher urban is definitely more a liberal leaning environment.
Yeah.
And maybe conservatives are just out there working. I didn't say that.
That's funny. I know some people, they tend to go, well, I asked our thing for an analysis because I was racking my brain. I was like, why is that? And they're not all. But oftentimes, here's another thing. Like they're often like very minimalistic. The architecture, is it just trends like really just blank oftentimes. You see like green plants, white walls, concrete.
Or industrial, yeah.
Yeah, very industrial. So, okay, I asked our AI for a little bit of analysis, and it gave me a surface level thing. The first thing it said was the demographics. Coffee shops tend to cater to younger, urban, educated populations who tend to vote liberal. Okay, well, whatever. Mm-hmm. Atmosphere. Coffee shops tend to have a creative, artistic atmosphere, which attracts individuals with more liberal values. I don't know, but like I feel like conservatives can be a creator, create culture and stuff too. So I don't think there is some of that maybe, but then it said branding. Some coffee shops deliberately cultivate a liberal progressive brand. Okay. To appeal. And then urban and cosmopolitan, which is what you said. But I was like, I don't know. That kind of explains a little bit, but I was like, give me a more mind blowing, like deeper analysis. And this was interesting.
Wait, let me guess first. Because I have another guess. I'll bet you conservatives are more frugal. And you don't pay $5 for a cup of Joe that should cost $1.
That could be. I must not be a conservative because I buy a lot of nitro coffee. Yeah. I bet overall, though, that could be.
I don't know.
I bet that could be. So here's one of the things. It said performance of values. Customers perform their values through their choices and behaviors in coffee shops, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. It's like a stage. It's like a place to go where there's a public where you can be seen. I think there's something to that.
That's interesting.
I really like that analysis.
I could see that. You ever hear Schultz talk about founder of Starbucks? He was in an interview, and the interviewer was talking about basically this: why are people spending so much on coffee? Blah, blah, blah. Is it just for prestige? Blah blah blah. And he's like, no, it's because the coffee is so good. Blah 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 blah. Right, and then literally like 10 minutes later in the interview, they're talking about they opened their first ones in Japan. And he said, and it's so cool because you'll see people walk down the street and they'll turn the Starbucks logo facing out. It's like he just totally contradicted himself. Like the reason they're doing it is to perform their, hey, look at me.
Right. Almost like a status thing. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, where else can you go and have an audience like that? I really think there's something to that, especially for that crowd. Then there's the politics of aestheticism. Coffee shops curate to a specific aesthetic that reflects and reinforces liberal values. I do feel like I feel like there is a little bit.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, because did we talk about this last week? I found this thread. I think it was from the Cultural Tutor or somebody, one of those accounts on X that kind of goes through old school stuff. And he was like, the stories that architecture is telling today there's not saying anything. That's that minimalism that you see. It doesn't have an opinion. It says nothing. And you look at like an old Catholic cathedral or even things like bridges, just old buildings in old downtown. Like they tell a story because beauty mattered. And so I think there's something to that too. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I think there's a portion of society who aesthetics are just everything. Yeah, it's kind of like the status. It's how do don't I look cool sitting here with my friends drinking a scotch
for TikTok or for Instagram
and having my big cigar and whatever. And on both sides, I'm not pulling out just liberals, but I think we're a pact oriented people, and people want to feel like they fit in. right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's something to that. Yeah.
I had a high school teacher that was influential in my life. He was my wrestling coach and a calculus teacher, and visited him for years afterwards. And he told me one time, he said, "You would not believe these high school students all coming in the morning with Starbucks cups." This is a small farm town in Colorado. And he's like, where did they get the money? First of all, right? And then second of all, they aren't cool unless they have one. It's just the new, you're in the in crowd or not kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that fits with the last point here. Actually, perfectly. It says inconspicuous consumption. Buying coffee is a relatively low cost, everyday activity that allows people to implicitly express their values and affiliations without making explicit statements.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're talking about.
That's
it's
interesting.
like, you accept me or whatever it is. It's not because the coffee's great.
It's like blue hair.
Right? Oh,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, same thing. It's like, I'm going to do this, and you're going to see that I'm part of this crowd.
Absolutely. And I'm sure conservatives have things too. And I have seen
What
some
would it be?
conservative
Bow
things.
ties.
There's a show called The Goldbergs. I don't know if you ever saw it, and it was actually pretty funny. And so it's taking place at this high school, and there's some episode where there's like something's going on in the hall, and this club comes up, and it's like the Reagan Club or something, and they're all like wearing nice button-up shirts and like
Yeah, I mean, you can spot them. You bet. Yeah.
So it's funny. Anyways, I really appreciate that analysis.
Thank you, objective reality.
Objective reality. It's so. Do you ever do that? You get like an answer, and it's like,
Yeah, go deeper.
yeah, and it goes like,
And it goes deep,
beyond.
and it can go way deep. And
Yeah.
then it can search out. It's kind of fun. Once in a while, I had an idea last week, and this will come up once in a while, and it'll say, "Wow, that's a fascinating idea." Like literally like it had I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
And it's strange because it doesn't do it all the time.
You amazed it.
Yeah, I mean,
I've had that too.
That's a strange.
But
thing.
is it trying to make you feel good? Is that like built
No,
into the
because it
program?
only does it on like literally
Oh,
things
really?
that are impressive in my mind, right?
I don't know.
Have you experienced
I'd
that?
like stats on them. Yeah, because I get that every now and then. But I
Yeah.
just figure it's sort of like,
No,
trying to puff.
I found it like it correlates to how
that's interesting.
how unique the idea is, and how it's like, wow.
Oh, well, I'd like to see the stats on yours versus mine. Like
Yeah.
who wows it?
I only get like once a year.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I saw this too, and we'll get into some other topics that you have gone too. But did you see this? The Zapier co-founder, his name's Mike Knoop. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He says AI language models have stalled in the process to AGI, and increasingly, just upping the scale is not going to help because it's inherently limited. What's your take on that?
I get so disillusioned with people.
Yeah.
It's like that's the new talking point. And yes, science happens on S curves. So if you graph out like progression on technologies, I don't care if it's like transportation or computing or whatever. Overall, it looks like this. It looks like we're just going exponential.
Yeah.
But if you zoom in, there's these little S curves where there's a new technology comes, then it accelerates, and then you've milked that one, and now it flattens out. But what happens is a new thing happens, a new little breakthrough, and you get another S curve. So it's a bunch of these little S curves. And I mean, I was debating about AI with someone recently. It's like, what do they were so down on it, and it's like it can't do anything. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like the most amazing breakthrough in my lifetime.
When they're are they down on large language models in general?
Specifically large language models.
Well, my question is, if it's not a language model, what is it? Because language that is what runs everything. Code is language, math is language, physics. It all translates into a language, and there's natural language. That's how we interface with it. But
I wonder. I'm not deep enough on the philosophy or science underneath it, but I mean, if you look at babies, they're processing just video and audio, really not words, but there's a lot of like wiring happening just based on what they see and what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not being translated into words at that point. It's later, but all animals do that.
Yeah.
All animal baby see, and they translate. It might be when we get language that adds actually the intelligence and the consciousness or the
Yeah, but that's interesting because whatever the signals and everything are, it's just not recognizable language by the baby in that case. But
Yeah.
like gravity and math, it
Yeah.
takes a human to call that language.
yeah. It
but
could be symbolic in the brain, symbol just like
yeah,
words. But yeah, I think we've talked about this before. How I was telling you how I had this discovery that words, putting terms on something, facilitates learning and improvement really fast. I was talking about chess and sailing, and so I mean, I think the evidence speaks for itself.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean,
So do you feel like that
new models come out, every few months. I'm watching there's ELO scoring boards, leaderboards, and we produce, the top models are in the 1300 range right at the moment. Go back a few months, they were 1250.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good increase in a few months, and it's just going to keep going up. I mean, I don't see, I haven't plotted it, but
so you think it has a lot of legs still, a lot of room to grow?
I do. I mean, there is a fundamental question of, can they only become as smart as the training data going into them? So they could never exceed us because the stuff going in is only us. But I don't think that's true because, like I've said, I think you can have a child that becomes smarter than their parents.
Yeah.
So
I wish I had bookmarked this. I saw, there's like the training data that feeds in and then you get the answers back and they're good. But then by the time you introduce synthetic data that the AI has generated and you start training on it, the results get worse, it looks like, from the information that I was seeing. Have you found that? Or
I would say that's true. So I've done this with audio data where you set up fake conversations and you put reverb on it and you try it because it's hard to actually record in buildings tons of audio for your training, but you can make tens of thousands of clips artificially, and it's not as good.
Yeah,
It's
why is it not as good?
Well, it doesn't mirror reality as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a simulation. It's not quite the same. It's like
There's something to objective reality. Is that right?
there's something real. That's why it's called simulation.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Is any cool tech stuff that you've come across or?
Tech stuff, yeah. Funny discovery. This is just totally not lighthearted. But Musk. Did you see Musk made Starship pointy because of the Dictator movie? Did you see that?
Right. I think I did. Yeah.
That's a very funny thing.
It's a funny, yeah.
And it's slightly less efficient than it should be.
Oh, is it?
What
would it? What should it be?
It should be rounded.
Oh,
And more
interesting.
So if you think of this is just an interesting physics thing. If you think of cars, for a long time they're more pointy at the front than the back, and that's like 180 degrees the wrong way. It should be like a raindrop. The front going against the wind should be rounded, and then it tapers because the eddy currents that are generated from any jagged edge. So a car should look like a teardrop, and a rocket should be rounded similarly.
That's interesting. The amount of things that he does, like just to do it, is pretty funny.
It's pretty entertaining. I'm waiting anxiously to see if they have to have Musk save the astronauts on the space station.
Oh, they're definitely going to have to. I mean, there's no way that I would put money on it.
I don't know.
Don't you think?
I don't know how I'd bet, but it's been 2 months. It was only supposed to be like a week.
If you're the astronaut, you're secretly like freaking out and you're hoping that they'll just, don't you think?
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, even if they sent something up, would you want to get in it almost? Like,
well, it's there. No,
it is.
It's
it
still,
just can't leave.
And they can't leave because it's got leaky,
Oh, they're the ones that
thrusters.
have to repair it then.
Yeah, they're the ones doing all the testing and repairing, but it's.
I wouldn't want to get in there.
And I think I read there's a parking spot problem.
What?
On top of this, so no, isn't this interesting? So you have the Russian side and you have the U.S. side, and the U.S. side has 2 parking spots, and they're both occupied, and so to attach to dock, and so they'd have to eject one of the Boeing one, throw it out into space.
Why hasn't Elon come up with his own space station? Just replace that thing, make it private.
I don't know.
That seems like the next step.
I don't know. they won the contract. SpaceX won the contract to crash the space station. I don't know if you saw
No,
that. Yeah, no,
That's funny.
they like I think in like 6 years
Why
they're going to
does
deorbit the space station.
and NASA can't handle that on their own?
No,
Seriously?
I guess not. Yeah,
That's crazy that they would
No.
even bid that out.
well, they bid it out. SpaceX won it, and it occurs to me, it's like that just seems like such a waste. It's like
Instead of just like refurbishing it, and
refurbish
keeping
it or push it out into a higher orbit so it doesn't
Yeah.
decay as rapidly. And I mean,
Yeah,
someone could.
is
I mean,
that the problem? That
like-
orbit will decay, not the pieces are going to wear out.
it feels like if you're an entrepreneur, you buy that and it's a hotel, and
Maybe they don't want to sell it to somebody. Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah, it does seem like somebody
maybe
would
there's
do that.
technology. Yeah, I don't know what the
Interesting.
politics behind it are, but
Yeah,
it's kind of sad that
Well-
will happen.
yeah. I what was your take when the space shuttle program ended? Because those were iconic. They looked cool,
Yeah.
but then it ended. But now knowing what I know about NASA, like it's not going good at NASA right now. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that was kind of the same thing. I was sad to see it go.
it's only obvious to us now because how good SpaceX is doing,
Mhm.
but probably it wasn't even going well during the space shuttle era. I mean, we had 2 of them blow up.
Yeah,
That's not a good ratio,
yeah,
right? We had, I think, so Falcon 9 was grounded. One of them blew up in the last week or two. But they've had 350
Yeah.
launches.
The ratio is
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole different world. So yeah,
Man, speaking of a different world, did you catch any? I know we talked about this. We weren't going to watch the Olympics, but you couldn't escape the clips.
did we talk about it? I don't know. Yeah,
The opening ceremony.
I wasn't gonna watch before I saw the opening ceremony, but my goodness,
Wow. So you actually did watch the opening ceremony?
no, I
Didn't
just saw
Okay.
afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I know somebody else who was like excited to watch it with their family and stuff, and
I would totally boycott.
they ended up not
Yeah.
after they started because
It's just so wrong.
but
mean-
it's on purpose. I saw something that's like they're not getting the tourists over in Paris that were expected. The businesses aren't
Good.
seeing an influx.
Good.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is the same thing with woke stuff. Like, there's an economic component that they just forget about.
Yeah,
and they just do like
until it happens, and then they
Yeah.
backpedal. And you saw they backpedaled. They pulled the video off the website
Oh, right.
of the opening ceremony, and then they went out and they used a
takedown, DCMA, right?
DCMA takedowns on everybody who put clips up.
Yeah, talk about being embarrassed or wanting to mitigate not embarrassed. They probably wanted to mitigate, just the
Yeah.
PR disaster.
It was
but
a PI. It was
that was
incredible
crazy.
disaster.
I'm kind of glad to see that some Christians have sway, I guess.
Yeah.
And even you saw other people who were, I don't know what the play was, non-Christians, like some Muslim people being like, hey, you shouldn't even do that. Yeah, I'm not a Christian,
Well,
but
imagine if it was Muhammad under that
Oh, yeah.
metal dome. I mean,
There's a reason why it wasn't.
Bombings. There would be death in
Right.
many places.
yeah.
I mean, Charlie Hebdo, were you maybe
Oh,
not
yeah.
old
No,
enough
I
to
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many people were killed? Like a dozen or more?
Right.
I'm trying to remember.
In
Yeah.
France.
Yeah, for just drawing the prophet Muhammad.
Right. Yeah. And no, it's crazy. But what was your take on it? So you're a very traditional Catholic guy. They're
Yeah,
basically,
I thought it was disgusting.
yeah.
I thought it was another sign of the impending or current collapse of society.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're at the point that you will intentionally, because you can't tell me that wasn't intentionally, trying to offend a good chunk of the population. I mean, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I find when I have new relationships, getting to know someone, and you don't know if they're conservative or liberal, right? The conservatives, you won't know it for a lot longer because they're trying not to be offensive, right?
Yeah.
A liberal, they'll throw out trashy insults to God or Trump or conservatism
Well,
before they even know who
Pride.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because it reflects the character, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I would not say something offensive to someone in case if I didn't know what their opinion was, in case they were that,
Yeah. You
It's
remember?
just not right. I can disagree with it
Yeah.
without being a terrible person.
Well, yeah. People don't really think like that anymore. Like, but you remember the Michael Jordan quote? And he was like, "Republicans buy shoes too," and it's like, well,
I
yeah,
don't remember. That's a good
but
quote.
it's like the same thing. It's like conservatives want to watch the Olympics too, or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess some might.
Well, I hope they
wanted to-
suffer some devastating financial. It's sad.
sounds
It's
like-
sad for the athletes, who train all their.
Oh, so there was
lives to
a
get
there was
there.
a transgender boxing thing. Did you see that?
Yeah, it turned out he wasn't a transgender though.
I don't
right?
know. I don't know. What was the
Yeah.
deal with
Was
that?
it Pakistani?
I don't know.
I think the idea there it was an androgynous, like a genetic,
Mhm.
actually a genetically
Like an intersex
androgynous
thing.
person. So not really transgender, and there was a lot of hoopla about it. And the poor opponent got pummeled. She said she's never been hit so hard in her life.
Yeah, 45 seconds.
Women
or
should
something.
be freaking boxing. I mean,
That was another question.
I'm sorry, but that's just. I don't know. Maybe I'm too heteronormative. It just that just
Yeah.
seems wrong to me.
Yeah, there was an interesting debate going on. People were talking about this interview that some progressive outlet did. It was the Times. It wasn't the LA Times, New York Times. I don't know what Times it was, but it was the Times I saw. And they went and interviewed a trad wife, a trad couple.
Oh yeah,
You saw that?
yeah.
And it was just like from the get-go,
a Mormon woman, right?
I think so.
I
finding every little way to spin every statement to make it seem like
Yeah.
this lady was oppressed. Or
It's a beautiful family. They have they have like 6 or 8 kids. I think they're pretty wealthy. I
hanging
think
out
the
on
husband-
a ranch or something.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
the husband. They have a ranch. They live a country lifestyle. She's like a beauty pageant queen or something, right?
Oh, I don't know. I
Yeah,
didn't
but
see
she's
that.
got millions of followers who apparently, probably some of them are guys who think she's pretty, but a lot of women who think that that's a lovely lifestyle to go
Right.
collect the eggs with your kids in
Yeah.
the morning and go milk the cow and,
Yeah.
traditional values, traditional roles.
Mhm.
Just got her exposure. Just got them exposure.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
Maybe not a terrible thing.
No.
But yeah, they attack the press. That you saw the Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists.
Yeah.
Could you believe? I mean, I watched.
Which
that.
why do we need that? Why can't we just have the Association of Journalists or something?
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean, if you put white in there, how would that go?
oh yeah.
It's appalling, and that was a nasty. She was a nasty woman. There was no good faith. It was just attack. You remember?
Well,
you saw his line.
Even that
no
really,
hello or thank you.
I know,
for
I
coming.
did. I saw it, but even that, like, you don't have to separate it into black and white.
I
like,
agree.
that is how the press treats Trump. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that she's black or
Yeah,
what. That's how they treat.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah,
That was really egregious, though. That was
yeah,
But goodness, look at him standing up and doing that. Like you can't
Yeah.
get Joe Biden to do anything. You couldn't get any other person to do that. I saw an interesting analysis: the genuineness of Trump versus other politicians. They're saying, take Harris or Biden, and the person you see on camera is nothing to do with who they are.
oh yeah,
Trump, you see what you get. That's the guy.
Right.
The Twitter accounts, the Twitters, they don't write their own tweets. They didn't, it's like they have a staff member that's not them. There's
That's
no
right.
genuineness. Trump, that's his tweets.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting too, because I think being a genuine, sincere person is like pretty crucial.
You would think so. You would hope so. Yeah. You want to respond to a comment? This what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. We don't get a lot of comments yet on the channel. It's growing. So we made a video, a clip, and it was called "Saving Democracy." LOL. Last week, and you were talking about, I believe, in the clip, how basically Biden got replaced. That's who was voted for in the primary on the Democrat ticket.
14 million people.
Okay, and so hence "Saving Democracy." LOL.
Do we get some hate?
Well, here's the comment. It says, I don't think they felt disenfranchised, and no one forced Biden out. He made his choice for the love of country.
No one forced Biden out? Are you kidding me?
Your guy
okay.
would never self-sacrifice like that. There is no...
Yeah. Self-sacrificed his like business empire and his cushy lifestyle.
And
for
he ends by
constant
saying,
hate.
people are sick of unproductive MAGA victim mentality.
Victim mentality.
What?
Wow, that's shocking.
Well, it's that iron law of woke projection, I think.
I
you know?
mean, like Is that one or two sentences? Two sentences, maybe. I'm wondering if I can make 5 errors in 2 sentences to top this guy or girl. He wasn't forced out. Like, we actually have liberals talking about how Pelosi forced him out.
Yeah,
we can do this the hard way. We can do this the easy way. Right. I mean, of course, he was forced out. He was literally days before saying, rah, 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 I'm not going anywhere. I'm never dropping out. And the media was, yeah, wow. I mean, it's I don't know what to say about that.
I think what you say is you can't reason somebody out of a position they weren't reasoned into. It's that old saying.
That's a good one.
You know, like they're not in it for the logic.
Yeah. Well, and if they have Trump derangement syndrome,
which is a real thing.
They aren't, it's definitely a real thing.
Dude, did you see, I know you're a business guy. Did you see the analysis that Chung Fan did of Nike here this last week? They have lost a ton of money. And I know somebody who works at McKinsey, okay? And I give him a hard time all the time.
My ex-partner's my current partner is an ex-McKinsey.
Ex-McKinsey, okay. So you'll relate to this. I feel like McKinsey, they ruin a lot of things. I respect the person a lot that works there, by the way, if they're watching this. But so Nike's down 30% year to date. They wiped out $60 billion. And basically what the consultant said, they gave him all these crazy things, but one of them was like, you need to get rid of categories. So like, don't have basketball shoes, don't have baseball, golf, whatever it is. No more categories, just men and women basically. And they got some other crazy things. Can you imagine wiping out 60 billion over these recommendations? Like you have a good thing. You've been in the business for a long time. You know how it works.
You know how it works. And they brought outside consultants come in.
Yeah. They brought the categories back, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because as you're saying, I'm like I participate in athletics, and it's like, no, I clearly Google and look for shoes for that activity.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, basketball shoes are a completely different thing than tennis shoes.
Or
right. Your ankle support. I mean,
that's right.
What a ridiculous thing.
Crazy. But I feel like when we had Kruptos on, he talked about how it's like plug and play. This managerialism has like gone everywhere. So you can have somebody in charge of a company like Boeing, for instance, that doesn't know anything about aviation, but they know about management. Like that's the McKinseyfication of things.
Yeah. And versus like a Musk who has studied in physics and rocketry his whole life, and he's running a rocket company.
And sleeps on the line and like knows how it works. And Yeah. This is totally unrelated, but you brought up Musk, which makes me think about Peter Thiel. Did you see this? He had a company where he would pay people extra if they lived close to the office, like within, I don't know if it was like within a mile or something. It was like he'd pay him like an extra $1,000 a month for their rent or something. Did you hear about that?
No.
And I think the reason was, and I don't know how I feel about this, so I do want your take on this. I think it was because like if he had a late night meeting or a weekend thing that he wanted to do, like they were there, and then it was like no excuses.
There you go.
What's your take on that?
That's unconventional. He also paid people to not go to college.
Yeah, that I like.
Yeah. The close to the office, when I lived in Houston had no zoning, which I'm a big proponent of because that's less government. So, let people work it out. It kind of actually works because like you don't get a factory doesn't buy land downtown because it's so expensive. It makes sense to put my factory out.
Right.
But Houston didn't have zoning. And consequently, I worked in this skyscraper and my apartment was right next door, and there were single family homes around it. So you had the skyscraper and then a neighborhood. And I thought it was awesome. I appreciated it. I didn't have to commute with everybody into the skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Right. And then out of the skyscrapers.
Yeah.
It was just like you had these pockets.
That's interesting.
And
it depends on the job probably and like how where you're at in life. Like if you got a family and stuff, you don't want to choose. Yeah, you get to choose.
Choice.
Yeah, because as the boss, I would like to have everyone like at my beck and call.
The pro-choice party is very pro-choice on only one thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
What's your take on? I see. Speaking of choice, that makes me think about vaccines and my body, my choice. Oh, except for vaccine. But I've been hearing a lot about bird flu stuff like coming down the pike. What's your take?
I haven't been watching it. I was so turned off by by this last few years in COVID that it's like I can't stand the thought of a new scare. But it feels generally like people are sick of it.
Yeah. Oh,
Is
yeah.
that your take?
I mean, Not everybody, because I still see a lot of people wearing masks. Still, like you go into certain coffee shops.
Like they're doomed for life, these people.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel sad for them. I feel sad for the young people that are doing it.
Yeah. I feel sad for the future conservatives if somebody like Kamala actually wins.
Oh my goodness.
Because she was talking about like even getting rid of red meat. Like now that I've gone keto, that makes me mad.
How's the keto going, by the way?
It's good. Yeah, it's really good. I feel like how long? It's only been since like January or something.
Yeah.
But I've dialed in so many different meats. Like I got the chicken breast down.
Yeah.
I cannot improve on that. It's so good. The burgers, wow. Although I'm missing out on the buns. But yeah, like the steaks. Now I got my wife. She's like, yeah, I'm in the mood for steak. We were both vegetarian. I was like, great.
For a long time.
I'll get that out.
For decades, right?
Oh yeah. So I think, the whole family, I mean, I'm dipped into the fish side of things. So
I think the evidence keeps stacking up.
Yeah,
I'm tempted to go carnivore.
Are you?
I'm tempted.
I know
this fall, like maybe September, October, I might go carnivore for a few months and see how that goes.
I'd be real interested. I know I've heard other people talking about that.
I've been cheating a lot. I have a lot of family around in the home, and I've been cheating. I mean, what happens is, they'll make pancake breakfasts and they'll make, I've had a lot of carbs lately, and I had my first headache in months, and it lasted like 2 days. It was like, wow, I forgot how good it is. That my life used to be like that. I used to have headaches 2-3 times a week, and now I go months and months without any.
Okay. I know. My first question is, how long does it take before those symptoms kick back in? Because we were eating out and it was like someone's birthday, so I had to have like some cake and stuff. I had to. But I felt it like almost within like 20 minutes maybe.
Wow.
I started feeling that headache come back.
Really? Felt a headache?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so inflammation.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. You think about an extreme version, anaphylaxis, right? When you eat shrimp and you're allergic or peanut or whatever, it's pretty quick. Your body reacts to that. So I could see wheat being.
Does it take you longer though to feel it?
Yeah. This was probably like the next morning.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The next morning, I know I'm going to have it for sure. So this brings up, I had a doctor's appointment because I had to get something checked out with my ear. And so I went in, and we have this place. It's a local place. It's like a chain around here, and it's like a teaching place / it's a research place. That's what it is. Okay. It's not a teaching. It's a research. And that means they suck up so much data. Now, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have cared. My wife's all about privacy and stuff. So usually when we go in, it's like opt out of all these different forms or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious on your take about this, because I assume you might be a little different. But I went in this time, they hand me an iPad. This is new. And it's like this survey of, 20 questions. And I was like, is this required? Yeah. Okay. Yes, it's required. And it's not just like regular questions. It's questions like, are you feeling suicidal? Are you, I'm here for my ear. And they're trying to figure out, it feels like that's the entry point for like trolling to get people hooked up on SSRIs and maybe even like,
I'm sure. I mean, how much intelligence does it take?
Yeah.
A big pharma.
Gender dysphoria.
Put that in. Like if you're sitting around your management of Pfizer and it's like, okay, we need to figure out how to sell more SSRIs.
Yeah.
How should we do it? Okay, well, we'll get doctors on the hook. We'll serve. I mean, of course. I mean, remember Abigail
Schreier.
Yeah. That book. I mean, that was exactly what she said.
I actually didn't read it. Did you read?
Part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. So there was that, and I was like kind of mad about that. But the keto side of this is, I'm talking to the nurse, and she's like, any new medications or whatever? I'm like, no, actually, I got off like all these medications because I went keto. Isn't this funny? And I expected her to kind of be like, really? Wow. She's like, keto. Like it's like default skepticism / I don't care. Yeah, I'm like, this is like medical related, I don't have to take headache medicine anymore because and she just didn't care.
I don't use doctors very much at all, but I had to do every few years I'm doing my own heart scan because of the plaque. Mm-hmm. And where we live now, you have to have a doctor's orders. Oh. So I had to find a doctor. Found a doctor in my parish, in my church. So went in and talked to him, told him what I do. He's like, no, yeah, I do too. I agree with that.
Nice.
So that's a good.
So you got to have the right circle of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anyone. Doctors spread the range of opinions and beliefs, and
Yeah.
so we have a funny joke in my family. My wife, we cycled through like 6 pediatricians on our firstborn before she found one that she liked and stuck with.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law quipped, what Aboriginal tribe did you find him in? But I mean, you can find people. Same with lawyers and accountants. Anyway, it's just people in general.
Yeah.
So they're people too.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of things to talk about.
Yeah.
This is just a small detail, and it's because I just did it. I bought a second refrigerator. My wife's been after me that we need more space, etc. And so go to Lowe's and browse the refrigerators. And it occurred to me, the refrigerators today are huge, and people may not notice it if you're younger today, but from when I was young, it's like, man, they're huge. So I asked Objective Reality, give me, historical refrigerator size. So this goes to my topic of like, things are so much better. There's a lot of whinging, a lot of complaining and victimization going on but things are so much better. So interesting refrigerator size when they first started, 6 cubic feet. So like size of a dorm refrigerator. The 1913. Okay. And then in the 20s, they went up to 9 to 12 cubic feet. And then let's just jump up to 40s. They're about 14 cubic feet. And then the 60s, they went up to 14 to 18 cubic feet. Then the 80s, 70s, 80s, this is when I was younger, 18 to 22 cubic feet. And now they're up to like 26, 28 cubic feet. So like our refrigeration ability has just grown, quadrupled in a century. And I just found that interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, here's some
not to mention
things.
what they do, right? They now crush ice for you, make ice, give you filtered water,
more functional,
adjustable temperatures.
When you say the
lighting.
Refrigeration is better, is that like the actual cooling technology is better, or
I'll bet we're somewhat better, but just mainly like the size and sliding out drawers and something you take for granted every day. But I was just thinking about it since
it's
I was
not like an ice under your house place to store it because it's cooler.
And what we get pushback on. I get pushback on this, but young people. So refrigerators now are like frequently $3,000, $3,500, and so the pushback. A lot of young people would be like, "Yeah, but look how expensive they are now. We can't afford refrigerators." And it's like, "Yeah, but you're missing the point. You can go get a 6 cubic feet dorm refrigerator for like $50. Right? If you want to have, so don't say you have it harder than we had. We had the small refrigerator. You can have the small refrigerator for the same price.
But that's the whole problem with the modern mentality is like, if you don't have it, you feel like you should have it. And like that's the thing.
If you see someone with it, that's the problem.
The communism, I think how everyone envisions it is like it lifts everyone up to the highest level, but it just brings everyone down to the lowest level.
That's exactly right.
And that's not good at all.
And it doesn't go well. So Maduro, I haven't seen the news in the last few hours this morning, but is there going to be a coup? Is there going to be? Yeah.
So they had elections. The graph looked very similar to Georgia and some other places where jumps up suddenly, and people were not happy with that. Seems like obvious fraud, right? From the outside.
I think a lot of the world was saying that. Did you see the selfie that the election? So in the computerized center, there's all kinds of computers where they were tallying the votes and so forth.
Yeah.
And, looked like nice Venezuelan guys and girls. And he takes a selfie of everybody who's working that night. What happened was all the screens were shown. And Maduro lost.
I did see
hard.
That. Yeah.
And until he sent his goons out to collect the boxes. And
I saw they rolled up and arrested the opposition, right?
I didn't see
think
that.
I saw that, and the comments were like, "Whoa, that reminds me of Mar-a-Lago." It's like all the stuff rolling up to the front. It's like,
yeah, it's really sad. I hope they do.
And he's
something.
mad at Elon.
I hope he's for spreading the news.
Yeah, right.
Spreading he
free
says
speech.
he says Elon's going to invade him, right?
Something. He's coming up with a crazy narrative. I guess you have to if you're gonna. It's the same thing. I'm a little worried that we're gonna plunge into World War III just so that certain people can stay in power, lock things down.
I think so, or keep profits. The whole military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
keep the weapons production up.
Yeah,
it's here's a different topic that I found interesting that came out in the last week, and it's Sam Altman's UBI test. I don't know if you saw or read about that. So this has been a multi-year test.
Well, hold on. He has the WorldCoin thing, right? Which is kind of UBI related? Or no? Is this something separate?
I don't know. This is a separate test. Okay. It might have been going like 3 or 5 years. So it's been a long time. People have been eagerly awaiting the results. UBI, Universal Basic Income, this thought of, hey, what's the best way to handle welfare type of social expenditures? If AI takes jobs, are we going to have to just pay people? Everybody gets a payment every month for nothing. So the test came back.
Which sounds like communism.
Yeah.
When you say it like
sure
that.
Does. I mean, but it's a serious, it's been very
hotly
contested for the last few years. And there's been small experiments in Sweden and some of the Nordic countries.
So he pulled off his own experiment, is that right?
Well, he put it was a $60 million test. He put 14 million in, and they did several thousand people. I think 1,000 people got $1,000 a month. And then 1,000 people or 2,000 people got $15 a month, which they did just to control, like, what's it like to get a paycheck? Maybe just makes you happy that you get something, or whatever it is. Results came back and failure. Surprisingly, people worked less if they were given.
But it's not surprising,
right? This was a really intensive one. They did blood workups constantly to see how it affected them, and in the end. Yeah, it was a failure. And one of the most telling things is by the end, so this was given to people, everybody in the experiment made like $30,000 or less per year. Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, the group that was getting the UBI, their income had risen to $45,000. The group that was not given UBI had risen to $50,000. So the group who wasn't being subsidized worked harder and made more money.
Yeah.
So it makes
sense on the surface.
I mean, it's kind of intuitive. It made Sam Altman's question. He's like, yeah, probably UBI is not the best way to go.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What was his, is he done thinking that's a solution?
Now he's thinking we need like universal AI.
That's what I've seen people talking about. Universal basic compute.
Given allocation of compute AI time.
Because the thinking would be like you're going to have an agent that's going to go make you money. Why can't you just do that anyways? Like,
I think it's stupid. I mean, I don't think you can centrally plan this stuff.
No, that's bizarre.
But it was an interesting. It was really from my perspective. It was.
What's your take on how to solve that? As
I don't have a solution. I think we have to. We're going to fork. And maybe somewhere between into two directions. One, where it's just this apocalyptic, terrible thing where nobody has work and everybody's taking Soma. Or we have a land of abundance. Yeah. Prices for everything come down. Wages may come down, but everything's almost free or super cheap. And now people have more time to pursue self-actualization or things that interest them, creative things.
Well, I just keep wondering, like, people like you and I, we're not going to just sit on our hands and be like, oh, good, AI is taking care of. Like, we want to do stuff. And even if it's just for fun, like, we will find something to dig into. At least I feel like even if the scenario was like, I don't have to work, like, I'm still going to go out and like do something. And so it's like, I find you're always going to have people like that. You're going to have like a tiered structure where some people just want to take it easy and some are going to want to do something. And that, I think it's just going to always be like
there's always different groups of people. Some will be happy just watching TV all day, and then some people want to like take up woodworking and learn how to make some things. So different probably requires different tactics for different groups.
Well, I just wonder if it scales. Like now that AI is here, I use it to do more. Now if it's gonna the amount that it can do for me, that will scale way up. But then doesn't that just mean I can use it, direct it to do way more?
Seems like it, right?
Yeah. which seems like pretty interesting. Tucker actually had an interview with somebody. I don't know if you saw this.
I'm looking forward. I bookmarked that to watch it.
Okay, they talk a lot about AI, and that guy's like, I don't think it's a threat at all. Tucker's like, I was not excited about it when it came.
How did he convince Tucker at all?
I don't know if it was
Tucker's
like
a big anti-tech person. I think. I mean, not anti-tech, but has personally chosen in his life not to use.
Right. Stay off social media.
He's not on social media. He doesn't look at his old videos. He's just, living his life.
I don't know. There's something to that. I know that I should spend less time like on my phone and like more around my family and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the last couple months in particular, when I have done that, I have been happier.
Really?
And it just takes so much.
You should experiment on yourself and measure it somehow.
Like
self-reported scores, couple times
right, or like hit the emoji. I know there's some apps where you can like track your mood.
Yeah,
but I mean, like I noticed it, and it wasn't like pleasure happiness. It was like satisfaction happiness, like a deeper.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
do you have that?
Yeah. Oh, I think.
How hard is it for you to disconnect?
Well, taking it to an extreme, I think I mentioned this. If I get caught up with short form video scrolling. It's like that dopamine hit is happening at that moment, but you feel lousy afterwards about it.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe like drugs.
Yeah. It's so dumb. And it's hard to compartmentalize because, the Apple devices, they have these focus modes. You can turn them on and it controls like notifications and what apps are even available during the focus mode. And there's one called Screen Time, and it pops up as like, you've reached your 15 minutes of whatever, just scrolling or gaming, whatever. But then they have a little button, and it's like, okay, then you're back into it.
They have hardware now. A Brick? Have you seen Brick?
No. Is that a phone? Like a dumb phone?
No, it's probably an RFID tag of some kind, but it's a little box, and you like stick it on your fridge. And then the only way you unlock your phone or your computer after the time or whatever you're trying to do, a certain app, is you have to go over there and touch it.
Oh.
So it's like that, just that little extra friction. And
interesting.
People report. Cool. Yeah, it's a great idea. My son, my second son is working on law school apps, and he's installed the software on his MacBook that like literally it's only a word processor. Like the computer will do nothing else. And he's made it very difficult to get out of it.
Yeah.
And he'll like come to me and say, "Can I use your phone?" I'm like, "What for?" And he's like, "I need to look something up." It's like, and that's what led me to see what's going on. Like he has no access to anything, which I think is pretty cool for a young person to realize and do.
Well, what is it about having to know stuff like these days? Because you can know anything you want basically right now.
You can know anything you want, but you can't know everything.
No, that's true. Yeah, you got that
There's
limit.
There's a good Taoist. The Tao Te Ching has a good verse on that. If you haven't read the Tao Te Ching.
No, I still haven't. But I know you love it.
I used to love it. I haven't seen it in years. But
yeah,
it's basically the line is it's foolish for limited to try. And
so you're not going to know it all anyways.
Know the unlimited.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
But I'm like you. I like refrigerator size historically, you know what I mean? Tell me, teach me.
I know. I actually saw a funny thing. It was like a cookie jar, but it had a lock on it. And it's like it's meant to be like a vault for your phone. You put it in, it has a timer, and you're not getting in until the timer goes off.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I've never used it.
Yeah.
You got to want to like do that. I don't think a lot of people do want to lock the phone away.
No.
For that long.
No, but I like it. You know, the movement, I'm not that social of a guy anymore, but there's a movement at social gatherings like dinners, people's houses, where you leave your phone at the door.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody puts their phone in a bag. And I think
that is a good idea.
People are growing aware.
It probably is not cool at first.
I hate, you're working with someone and talking with them and they're on their phone. No, it's a joke.
Right here. That's funny. So I want to talk a little bit about this. We talked about this before we got going here, but Megan Basham, she works for Daily Wire, and she's got a new book out, and it's called Shepherds for Sale. And it's about, I haven't read it yet, okay, but it's about big evangelicalism kind of taking over, doing things like where the Southern Baptists don't want to be called the Southern Baptists anymore because it's too like racially profiling. It's, Jesus died not just for the people in the white people in the South or whatever,
Well, it's funny because I've been to Southern Baptist Church, and it's all black.
Oh yeah,
I mean, or it's a lot of there's nothing
Yeah.
racist about that, but interesting.
But wow, this book has created a huge firestorm. At least for the people that I follow
Yeah.
on X, and it's crazy because
Disagreeing with her?
yeah, people are really taking sides. There's a couple popular pastors, for instance, that she uses examples in the book who are pushing back and like, I didn't say that, but something about Megan's like, she's got all the receipts. Like, okay, well, here's this screenshot,
Good.
and it's
Good.
like,
Good
but
for her.
the crazy thing is, you wouldn't have that pushback if it wasn't like real criticism. Otherwise, it would just like roll off.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's not like she's saying it's a flat Earth.
yeah, you know that she's hit the nail on the head because there's such a firestorm about it. And it turns out all of these groups, there's a bunch of groups that she talks about, are funded with liberal money and stuff. And it's like a coordinated takeover of the church infrastructure in the US, it feels like. And if you talk to Kruptos, he thinks that the church structure in general, anyways, it sort of leans liberal, anyways, because it's running the same operating system as like the government. But I don't know. What's your take? We kind of talk about Soros and how he funds things, and that's a diabolical thing.
I just heard this for the first time this week, and it wasn't even. Might have been Genesis. Might have been that book or her, but one of my sons was telling me that the way that Open Society, Soros, etc., bought DAs and was making inroads there. They're doing that to the church. So that's a smart move. I would do it,
but diabolical.
It's diabolical.
Yeah,
but I totally believe it. I mean, they've done it to doctors. The pharma has done it with doctors. I mean, everybody. It feels like almost maybe that's integrity. You know, I've said it feels like there's few jobs left where there's any integrity. You know, it used to be science had integrity, and they would, but now they're just for sale, shepherds for sale or scientists for sale.
Right.
You know, try and get grant money. Beat media. You know, it's like we need more advertisers. We got to attract clicks, and so they're for sale. And I mean, it's just going down the line.
Well, it's a disgusting attitude if you're the person funding it, because what are you saying? A person is not somebody to have their own opinion. You know, they need to have my opinion, and I'm going to go to the extent of like funding. Like that's a really disgusting thing to actually do. You're not trying to convince people.
Well, let's talk about that. I'll push back on that. Again, like I say, I would do it. I would try to fund conservative values in the church.
If you were an evil person, progressive type person who wanted to blow up,
no. Say I'm,
or you would do it from a Christian perspective. Okay,
right. I would try and generate PR and try to go to pastors and try to push the conservative agenda. I think it's smart. I think it's wrong. I mean, it's bad. It's dangerous for us.
For you, it probably depends on what the message of, it's not about the action. It's about like the content of the, So there is that difference.
Right. But I do think that the gross part about it is like the shepherd should not be for sale.
Yeah.
The journalist should not be for sale. The scientist should not be for sale. Like doctors should not be for sale. I mean, they take a Hippocratic oath. I mean, all these people should be only about, being integritous and presenting the truth as they know it.
Yeah.
Not like I get some extra income if do we talk about this with the Pfizer thing? This is off topic a bit, but it's been a while. So the doctors would get $75 per shot. I heard a doctor say I was going to make $1.5 million if I did this, but I didn't believe it, so I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I had to go look up the evidence from the insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield, et cetera. And the payments were like $75 per vaccine. And these doctors would have 6,000 patients with multiple vaccines in their clinic. And so that's like, it's millions of dollars.
Yeah. Incentive structures.
To do something
unethical in this case.
But I mean, the point is, they're just buying.
Yes.
They're just buying everyone.
And it's crazy too, because like that class of people generally has like a decent amount of money anyways. Like, and having more money has nothing to do with your level of integrity.
Well,
apparently.
I mean, it's probably almost inherent, right? If you're trying to buy influence from someone, if you're trying to get someone you're trying to spread your influence, you're going to do that from someone who already has a lot of influence. They probably have, means already, whether they're like a top blogger or a journalist or a doctor or
right.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question for you now that you bring this up. For some people, like money, it really doesn't appeal that much, right? Like, or they'd be like, I have enough.
Like Musk.
Sure.
Surprisingly.
But for other people, the way that you can play them is to offer power instead. And I don't really understand because I'm not somebody who really craves power. I just haven't been that kind of a person. Does that appeal to you at all? Like if someone wanted to get to you, could they offer something to you that gave you power? It
doesn't. I have the old, you have the angel and the devil on your shoulder. So I've always had this thing, like I have a real hard time having people work for me, particularly like manual labor. It's like I can't sit and relax while someone works for me. And it goes, it's not just me. I remember when I was in San Francisco, leaving San Francisco, my roommate was moving out and he paid a moving company. And I was just sitting there in the apartment reading, and here come these movers. And I was like, just compelled. I felt like a heathen, terrible person just sitting there while they worked. And so I started helping move, and they're being paid for it. And so it's some weird thing in me. But you can feel the devil, if you will, the perverse feeling that power has, that you can make someone do something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that fallen nature in us. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But it's not obviously not a motivator for me.
Yeah. But I do feel like there's some people like take the Soros family. Like
what motivates them?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a topic around that.
Okay.
Murdoch and the family. Did you see the new, he changed his trust to cut out the other kids because they're too liberal.
No.
To give Lachlan, who's not even that great of a conservative, but he's more conservative, give Lachlan the Fox News.
No, I didn't do that.
The media empire.
I don't know a lot about their family.
Yeah, so Rupert Murdoch was a Australian. They're Australian, I think, and he started in newspapers and started News Corp and then Sky News in England, and he created the world's largest news conglomerate. And
did they own Wall Street Journal for a while?
They still do, I think.
Oh, they still do. Okay.
And he's very conservative.
Is he very though? I keep feeling like I hear he's
he's moderately conservative. Okay. He was definitely shaking his fist when Vance was nominated.
Because I feel like Fox almost has a reputation these days of not being all that conservative.
They're like rhinos.
Yeah,
they're kind of the Mitch McConnell party. News source at the moment. But
so he has several kids. And some are too liberal for his taste.
Right.
And he's restructured.
So it's just like, I don't know if you saw the show Succession.
No. Have you seen it? Is it good?
I have to admit.
I hear about it.
It's a really good show. It's not.
Really? What's it on?
It's not very, there's some impropriety there for sure. But
is that Apple?
If it was on Apple or Showtime.
Okay.
But it was fascinating to me because I thought I would be a Wall Street guy for most of my young life, and this is about that power struggles, but it mirrors the Rupert Murdoch family like almost identically. It's this old guy who's created this big, and he has the same thing. I mean, he has the movie studios, the news. I mean, they clearly like made it after the Murdochs.
I see.
And it's this big fight amongst the three kids about who's going to inherit, who's going to control, who's going to work, and who daddy loves and doesn't love. And so there's going to be a lot of.
So what's your take on him doing that? Because to back up, I remember you telling me why, if you built up a bunch of money, you got these billionaires who like, I'm going to leave them 100,000 or $1 million. They can have 1 million. But then you were telling me like, why would you not leave that to your kids?
Well, if you don't like what your kids are, take it to elucidate by the extreme. If they're like crackheads, probably not just going to give them $1 billion.
Yeah.
But I do like it. He sold Disney some years ago, and each of the kids got $2 billion out of that.
Oh wow!
Right, so they're all sad. That's ridiculous. But I think this piece, he's like, he wants to help, like Musk. It's like the world needs this conservative news voice, and I'm not going to let you guys ruin this.
I see.
So I think he's trying to do his best to let. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's interesting to watch the machinations of that world that I'm never exposed to.
Yeah. Because it seems like that on the Soros side, it seems like that is about power. That's one group of people where it does seem like
Soros, yeah.
Yeah, because you have the money and you have a lot of other things.
Yeah, it's a good question. What's the goal?
Yeah. Just to say that you
Change the
upended.
world.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that, we talk about this instinctual need to create.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's creative destruction. They want to create a new society around
Right.
what they think is the right
Well, do
value.
you feel like that's the only realm right now where you could be somebody like an Alexander or a Caesar or, like people are everywhere, and you're not going to have an army to go command or whatever, but that's
Right.
one way that you can take over the world or influence. Like maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, power, spheres of influence.
Yeah. Because there's no other way to really, I guess you
Yeah.
could still, if you were in charge of, if you were
Yeah.
the dictator of America.
They talk about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like I said, that devil in me, I get it. When you have a bunch of employees and they'll do what you say and, they defer to what you want, it's an attractive thing. You have to fight that. It's like, too much cake.
Yeah. Right.
Cake's not bad in itself, but if you
Yeah.
if you abuse it, I get it.
One last thing, we can end on this too if you want, but the family watched War Games the other day.
Oh,
from
the old
84,
ones?
the
Yeah.
old one.
Want to play a game?
Yeah, and it was hilarious, but it's funny because the AI in that it's so unsophisticated compared to just our product
What
right
we
now.
actually have.
Yeah. And in fact, I was thinking you got this supercomputer, and probably even back then, that must have just been a movie prop because if it was really going to be wargaming all this stuff, it probably wouldn't have fit in a room like that. But I was thinking like the iPhone in your pocket probably is
More powerful than
how many orders of magnitude. Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely
It's crazy.
is.
And so I guess that kind of got me thinking, do we do something similar today? And if we do, like the government, for instance, like have something simulating out all these things. And if we do, is it like a crazy supercomputer or is it just like the Mac?
It's a crazy supercomputer.
You think it is a good...
Yeah, it is.
Because you don't feel like the biggest AI, the biggest data center is going to win. But here seems to be a case where there's benefit to the edge computing.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, with the simulation.
Yeah, I probably haven't thought deeply enough about it. I've thought about it in like the consumer realm, but not in the military realm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if the country with the biggest AI, enfeebles everyone else.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's crazy.
It's funny because we get closer. The idea of the singularity.
Yep.
The point at which, and I think the definition is like technology is moving so fast, things have gone so exponential that you can't predict, you can't even conceive of it. What's going to happen.
Like a human, there's a disconnect. You could never even try to understand.
And I feel all my life I've been pretty good at predicting what's coming, but we get into these questions and I find myself saying, I don't know, I can't see it. You know? It's so I feel like it's approaching.
Yeah. What does that mean for you as a Christian, like as a believer, you think? Because to the secular person, that's like a digital God.
Yeah, well, it definitely isn't God.
Didn't make the universe that
I think I've told you I'm just completely torn between this techno-optimism and this neo-Amish Catholic community where you cut it out of your life because you're happier if you don't use it, as you were just saying.
This is a very serious statement. I think I was thinking back to when you and I first got together in the coffee shop. We used to meet and just kind of talk about the same kind of stuff, but off camera. And we got to talking about should there exist an AI that doesn't have these certain biases and things? And then we got to talking about, well, if people are trying to build AGI, does somebody need to build one that's coming from certain principles?
Counteract it.
And the question is, there's a phrase. You may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. If you bake certain things into the thing that's going to become on singularity level technology, then you may not be interested. You may take the neo-Amish approach or whatever, but the thing might be interested in you.
Yeah.
And then you have Kruptus's tank problem, but in a digital
I like that
form,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what that means other than somebody needs to sign up for our thing right now at objectivereality.ai.
Absolutely. Well, it could be like, in a society, you have to have, the forefathers, everybody's always known this, you have to provide for the national defense.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a father, you have to defend your family. And it could be that this is the new technique of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you do need to allocate. There does need to be people who are thinking about that and preparing and dealing with that. And doesn't mean you can't have people who bow out or they aren't interested. It doesn't have to be something I've contemplated a lot in Catholicism is the whole hierarchy, and how much I don't like that in normal society, in capitalism and business. But I think it's incredibly necessary in this sphere. And, in Catholicism, people have distinct. I've noticed that Protestants evangelize more, right? They're like spreading. They've got the answer to the afterlife and everything, and they want to tell everybody about it. I've noticed Catholics do that less. At least that's my perception. Now, hundreds of years ago, it was all Catholics doing the missions and so forth. But it feels to me, and I got to thinking about that, and it's like, well, okay, it's they have their roles. So I put this in front of different people, and it's different because your role as a father is almost all about your family and creating them right. And so anyway, I use that, and a priest, his role is to be that and bring the flock, the shepherd. I wonder, it might be that the role is you have people in this community who are, focused exclusively on that, and that's their job is to protect.
It doesn't have to be everyone's
China's
purview.
AI,
in other
right?
words,
we feel like
somebody's.
We feel like it's kind of our job to bring objective reality and offset the woke mind virus.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good analogy. I always actually think of it as almost a Second Amendment or like a two-way, but digitally. Yeah. Like you're talking about defending things like this is that in the digital
interesting.
space.
So it's Second Amendment. I've never thought about this, but Second Amendment is about you speaking. It's almost like we need a corollary, a 2.5 amendment, which is you have the right to hear objective reality. You have the right to hear anything. Yeah. Right.
Yes. And I also feel like it's also like a digital firearm sort of thing too, in that it's defensive and you're unarmed if you don't have the right information. I feel like it's also that. So
that's interesting.
So get yourself signed up. Objectivereality.ai.
I'm sorry. First of all, Amendment 1.5, free speech, free listen, and then 2.5, digital arming yourself.
Yeah,
there we go.
Really, I mean, and someone has to think about it. A lot of people don't care, but as long as somebody is,
as long as someone's doing it and you can use it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
At objectivereality.ai. Get on the wait list.